Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Marvelous Monday with our lovely Beverli Rhodes. And yes, we have her on this week. For those of you who missed us last week, Beverly was traveling and had just reached the United States of America and is there for a couple of months. So, yeah, welcome everybody in the chat, Wenches with Wrenches. Colleen, I'm glad you got your wrench back. Gullen Ogong, nice to see you all again, and I hope you've all had just a fantastic weekend. So we're going to be chatting with Beverly about, all sorts of South African disclosures, things that have happened here, and of course, our conversations always lead to very interesting topics. So let's see where it goes. But before I do that, let's just have a look at one of the two of the announcements for this week. I will be interviewing Rachel Vaughan and another new guest on Aquarius Rising Africa, Chris Litera. Another very, very interesting guy, part of the Montague Super Soldier programs as well. I'll be interviewing them on Tuesday, so we will be posting their shows sometime during the course of the week. So please just watch for when we post that. Wednesday, Double Trouble with Jesse again, of course. We're going to be furthering the Kardashians, so looking more into the sisters this time and all sorts of Kardashian news. Thursday, I will not be here on Thursday, so I will not be doing a show with Dr. Dennis on Thursday this week. But what I'll possibly be doing is then be airing either Chris or Rachel Vaughan's show. One of them will either be tomorrow and probably Thursday. So just check the schedule to see when their shows come up. As I said, Chris Litera will be joining us this week. Very interesting guests. Just check the timing for that. Friday, Holly Baglio, beautiful new Holly Baglio. We'll be having her on for a few Fridays, telling her amazing story. Also, ex MK Ultra slave, super soldier. I love that these people are sharing their stories now. Definite disclosure. And did you see, guys, the French president, right, Brigitte, they were suing Candace Owens for Candace saying that, well, pretty much calling out Brigitte for being male. They've now dropped the lawsuit against Candace. I wonder what that says. Anyway, we'll be watching. I really look forward to having my popcorn with this one, I had to say. But anyway, let's see where it takes us. So without any further ado, the gorgeous Beverli Rhodes. Hello, lovely. How are you?
Hi, hello. Yes, I'm in Florida, and I think that ever since we've arrived here yesterday, it's just been raining. So I guess I must have brought the cloudy, rainy weather all the way from London across the pond into Florida, because it's just been. You see, I've got long sleeves on, so it's just been not cold, but it's just been raining and wet, which is fine. Hence, I can't do anything with this. I've got what they call, what is it, Florida beach hair. Oh, ridiculous. So by the time I see you next week, I should have got this under control.
It looks lovely. I mean, it's wild. It's wonderful, really. It's so
It just
you. What can we
it
say?
just curls. It just curls by itself. Oh my lord. So yeah, it's been 11/11. Very nice too. Yeah, so
Exactly.
it's been a very interesting time, very friendly people, seen all sorts of amazing things. And then we went we did a lot of filming, crew and myself, we did a lot of filming out in Jekyll Island, which is in the state of Georgia. And we were on one of the driftwood beaches. Very, very, very amazing energy. So yeah, been very pleased to see that. So We've got some absolute amazing professionals called Lou. Lou has got all the videos, and a couple of the others that are able to take all these videos that were taken, put them all together and make them into something amazing. I can't wait to see what she comes up with, because Lou's very talented. And then that'll be posted on the channel too. And we've got about 4 others that we have to do, which form part of what they call a show reel. And that's what will go to one of the TV stations that we're having a discussion with at the moment. So yeah, should be lots of fun.
Oh, wow. Well, good luck with that. So I look forward to seeing everything when the time is right. I guess
Yes,
we will see that, right? And I have
yes,
to
I hope
say,
so.
before yeah, I'm just going to pop your ticker up here quickly.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and I have to say, I have started reading your book, and I'm probably into maybe a quarter way now. Um, wow. I don't know if you guys have actually gotten Beverly's book, but I want to say if you haven't, there it is. It's absolutely incredible. The horse score. I mean, in the first chapter, I was mortified because I was just saying to you off air that because that explains the 77 London bombing. And, although when we hear about these things on the news, and I speak about myself who's never been close to anything like that, despite living in such a violent country, um, I think we seldom think about the individual people. We hear the masses scream, we see people running. Like 9/11, we
Mm,
saw people jumping out of the building. I think it's such a shock to the mind to even wrap our heads around that. And then, of course, reading your book of someone who was a survivor
yeah.
of that pretty much death bomb, right?
Mm,
And no mercy, the harshest, coldest way to take out civilians. And just you speaking through your experience about how that was for you was absolutely heart-wrenching, I have to say. I
mm.
mean, when you look back on that day now, and yes, I know we spoke about in earlier shows as well, that it was due to that day that you started reclaiming your memories. So I want to say God works in mysterious ways. So I would love to say that, in my opinion, was one of those unbelievable, mysterious miracles that is born from such a tragedy in
Mm.
your situation where you were able to then remember, reclaim, and then share your story. So when you look back now on that, how do you feel?
So yeah, I think that for a long time I was obviously very shocked, because the the event itself was always paramount. It was something that I was dealing with because I had, the post traumatic survivor syndrome, where surviving any type of traumatic event used to be called PTSD, is now PTSS. From that point of view, it was difficult because I would think firstly about 7/7, the 7th of July 2005 London bombings, now 20 years ago. But then I realized actually the two trauma events are dovetailed into each other, because without having been, had this whole side of my face and my body hurt to the level that it was, without that happening as the catalyst for reopening, the bang on the bonds, the bang on the head was the catalyst to bring everything forward that I had buried so deep. So it's one of those things that I think, without being in the wrong place at the wrong time, was it then actually the right place at the right time? Maybe that's what it was, because from that I was able then to dissect everything and look at where I was, what was I doing, looking at the door and seeing where the light was under the door and seeing when he was walking down the passageway. And I originally thought, what's this got to do with 7/7? And only later, once I'd been talking through what I'd seen, only later did there was a group, a really lovely group of clinicians that were assigned to deal with all the 7/7 survivors. And we used to all go down there once a week, and they had this big room and different rooms coming off it, and they would come and talk to each of us separately. And then he was the one who was saying to me, well, this and this and this is what's happened, is your mind was so traumatized by what happened to you as a little girl that it locked it away, and it took a big bang on the head and being unconscious to meld the two together and bring those memories to the fore, which is exactly what happened. So for me, all these years later, I do sometimes wonder, if I wasn't in the train, and if I wasn't in that event, in the incident of the 7th of July London blow up, then I probably would never have reconnected with the past at all. It would have just been there dormant somewhere in the background, because it was so bad that I buried it so deep that for years I didn't see it at all. So for years I lived without knowing, but then used to just wonder, well, why have I got these triggers about things? What are they for? Why am I like that? So you kind of think later, you think to yourself, so today I look back and think, well, it now makes a lot of sense. We now know what happened. So that's why I was always triggered. That's why I always had an attitude. That's why I didn't want to drink water, because they used to put the substances into the water. That's how they used to get it to the children. So, and I used to think, well, why is it that everybody else can drink water and I just, I can't get it even close to my face, let alone anything else. So I have to doctor it with something else, put some game in it, or put some, powders to make it taste like something else, and then I can just about drink it. It's very odd. But yeah, so today I'm thankful in a way for being,
absolutely
right place, wrong time, because I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Yeah, exactly. Was it only the abuse that you'd shut down and locked away from your childhood, or was it events and things like, for example, being part of, like, the psychic for the president or the government, let's call it that way? Was it stuff like that you'd also shut down, or was it the trauma from your childhood?
That's a good question. I think when I was starting to work through things, the worst ones were always the trauma ones, the ones that were where there was a particular ritual that was happening, or whether I've been, taken to service individuals. Those were the ones that were apparently were buried the deepest. The easiest ones were the ones where I was doing, the psychic work or the spiritual work. Those were the easiest because they were like almost on the surface, sort of surface. So they came through quite easily. But the really awful ones, they took at least 3 or 4 years before they started coming out, because they were so bad. I mean, this is stuff that horror movies are made out of, and even then people say that can't be factual. Well, yeah, actually it is. I mean, it's pretty rough. It really is. It's just awful. They were the ones that took a long time to surface, and they would be like, I would get a glimpse of something and then speak about it, then I'd get a glimpse of something else and speak about it, and then the third time I got that glimpse of something, then that was awful, because then it had a physical effect. So I would just immediately start this like stress vomiting, where I start seeing all these things, and that was it, and my stomach just came straight back up. So it was a very difficult time, because eating was a challenge, not just from all the stuff and all the wiring and everything I've had with the new cheeks being built and all this being rewired and done with the new teeth and everything. So that was a challenge. But then keeping it down was a challenge, because as we were working on the book, we had to start going through what was happening when I was meeting at the hospital with everybody else. And then I was going through the 7/7 London bomb stuff, and also going through what I'd seen from the past. So they had a fantastic patient there, because they had somebody with 2 huge traumatic events. And this is what came to the fore. So it was a very difficult time. Yes.
Were your memories deliberately blocked off by your handler? So was there like, because when we hear about a lot of these satanic ritual abuse survivors and stuff, obviously their memories are locked down, and more like MK Ultra. Were yours deliberately blocked off, um, or did you shut them down yourself?
I think, from what I can tell, after going through, the 10 years of sort of memory reconciliation and, a peaceful transition, if you like, from being traumatized into someone who can deal with what has been seen. I think that somewhere along the line, the handler, as well as the group, because it wasn't just him, there was a whole group of them, I think that they must have realized that I was going to bolt at some point, because I was getting more and more angry, and I'd already made that particular threat with the broom handle and said, "You come after me, that's it. It's the last thing you'll ever do, because I'll take you out myself, and I don't care what happens to me after that." So I think they must have realized, having done this type of work with children for such a long period of time, they kind of know that if you push and you push and you push and you push and you push, eventually this person is going to say, "Aqua, watch out, I'm not having any of this anymore. Draw the line." And then you don't, then somebody that's got nothing else left to lose, they become very dangerous, because then it doesn't matter what happens. And I think they saw that I was getting to the point where, you know what, I can't take this anymore, and I've had enough of this, and I'm gonna do something very silly. And I think they must have realized she's either she's gonna go for someone, one of the handlers or whoever, or she's gonna bolt. And they must have realized I was gonna bolt, which I did. So, and they must have started shutting things down.
Right. Wow. Wow. Were you ever trained in any of their cultish stuff? I know you have natural psychic abilities, which is what they later on obviously started exploiting. But I'm wondering, just in terms of the satanic ritual stuff, like the rituals, the witchcraft, the
Mm.
ritual abuse. Were you trained in any of that as well?
Yeah, I actually wasn't trained in any of the satanic stuff. I was only just, either when I was small, I was just a spectator that used to be very irritating and ask hundreds of questions, and then get sent out every now and again because I wouldn't shut up. But things like, they're very, the mages and those that were sort of the high priests, and that they were very protective over who knew what. So you'd only be brought in to an event or one of the rituals at the time that you and your energy was specifically needed, or bloodletting was needed for that particular energetics or whatever. So there's a few ceremonies that I witnessed and watched them, but I wouldn't really know exactly what they're saying or how they're saying it, but I would have a
Right,
good idea on what bits came next. But we'd never really know the whole thing. So it seems to me as
right,
they were very careful. You would know that bit, and then another child would know that bit, and then another child would know that bit, and that's how they were, like, in their time. We are going back now to sort of 60s and 70s. And in those particular times, they were very protective about who knew what, because there was no way of sharing information apart from writing it down or attending one of the rituals, because in those days there was no internet. You could print out stuff. I mean, faxes hadn't even just started. They started later in the 70s. So there was no way, apart from passing it on ritualistically and saying, right, this is what we do, having a mage train you, this is how you do stuff. I know it sounds odd today because we, press of a button, we can get all this information. It was never like that. So no, I was never trained in anything, because that I'd always fought against all of the SRA, and I'd always fought against wanting to learn anything. And I said, I don't want to learn this. When I got older, I said, I don't want to learn this. So they had to find somebody else that was at that level, or from one of the other families, because all the families would have had somebody like me in there anyway. They always had someone that was either serving an apprenticeship or doing work with them to make sure that they had, the bloodline was always represented somewhere. So, and I was to be the representative, and I said, no, I ain't doing it. Sorry, on your bike.
Wow. Goodness me. Well, yeah, you are. And I'm happy to as I always say, to have you here. And I know the last show we did, you spoke about vampires. I mean, that took a turn, didn't it? I mean, I didn't even know this stuff. A wonderful one, because I didn't even know half the stuff you were talking about. It was amazing. So if you guys have not caught that show, our previous show, part 5, I believe, yes, part 5, where it's actually called Vampires Live Amongst Us. And Beverli literally had to go to this house where the vampires were feeding on women, and she had to be the watcher to make sure that no one was coming. I mean, my goodness.
No one comes up to the front door. And you know what? These things, I often get questions afterwards and sent to me via email, but these things are still happening. There are still safe houses that are houses that individuals have been asked to, it's like vampire daycare. What can I say? Where they've got individuals looking after them. And it's, you get covens, you'll get the voodoo priestesses, they will help. You'll get the, those that are part of the SRA groups, they will help. And you get the Luciferians, they will help. And believe it or not, sometimes if they're desperate, even 1 or 2 Mormons will help them as well and drop people off. But remember, these women that are giving freely of their life force, they give freely, it's free will. They make the decision to give of themselves. They're not forced, they're not paid, they're not coerced. This is, I'm going to do this. And therefore, they're marked afterwards, because once there has been someone that's taken some of your life force through either opening this particular vein or opening the vein in the tops of your legs, there's another very big artery on the tops of your thighs. That's the other way they do it. I know. I agree with you. No, not nice.
I'm like, ew.
Yeah, squirm. I mean, so they'll just get into, just the mind boggles. Yeah, all you'll end up is seeing an alligator, but never mind.
Yeah. I'm telling you, that is like bizarre, the most bizarre thing I could imagine.
Yeah, it is.
Wow. I'm sitting here thinking it would be incredible to actually interview a woman who has been giving herself to a vampire. I would love to know what motivates you. It could be money. Are they not paid though? There's no cash transaction.
No.
So they just go out of their own free will. They might have had a revelation in the middle of the night that they have to be the vampire's food, and I don't know, like some spiritual. I can't imagine anyone willingly doing that. Being a feeder for the vamp.
I mean, why would you want to be a feeder? Yeah, but you never know, because sometimes I think later, because of the markings, because when they lick the throat, in the saliva of the vamps, it is an analgesic and it's an antiseptic as well as an anesthetic. So when they start preparing this area by doing the lick, 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 kissy, 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 that's getting ready for them to bite, then that whole area, so your whole neck, this whole area will be completely asleep, as if you are on the operating table asleep. It will be completely asleep, and it will have an anesthetic on it, but it would also have an antibiotic type, which is very odd. But yeah, that's what happens, and they have agreed to that. So, and then once this happens, then they're marked. But some of them do prefer to be bitten in their thighs, in their upper thighs, because then the mark is, because when the mark heals, you can see it. You can see it on the neck. So that's why some of them prefer to have a thigh bite. So yeah. So this is why
Hula just says, yeah, yeah. She was, so there has been someone who's been interviewed that has been a feeder. I would love to actually, Hula, if you have a link for that, I would definitely want to watch that, because for me, that is just wild. I mean, I'm fascinated. I'm fascinated to understand that. I really am.
yes. Yeah, it'd be good to get a feeder. Good to get a feeder. I think that would be ideal, because they will be able to tell you a lot more about how it feels. I mean, I was only just there making sure that the food source got there, or we call them the takeaway. The takeaway got there, you know. But yeah, they would have been marked for sure. So it's probably individuals that can walk in New Orleans without worrying. And yeah, we've had a couple of calls from individuals saying, why don't you go to New Orleans and go and do a show through New Orleans and take some video there and see what happens? So yeah, you never know. We might just do that.
I was going to say, have you made that? Have you made that decision? Not because I know you were a little while ago, you were not quite sure as to whether you were going to be taking that road.
I don't know. I'm gonna, now that I'm here, and we can have a look at how far is it? I mean, I don't know how far it is to drive, and look at all the logistics, you know, how many cameras do we need, you know, who needs to be traveling, what are the costs going to be? So we'll be obviously looking for a sponsor for the New Orleans vampire, not a vampire hunt, I don't know what we would call it, but you know, is looking at some of the places. I think I'd like to look at some of the places that I know, having heard them over the years, and see A, if they still exist, and B, if there's still some sort of energy around it, maybe do something slightly different. You know, what are the vampiric energies? How much of that energy still remains in New Orleans? And then make sure that we are up all night and do not go to sleep, so that whatever we catch, we can catch. So I think that could be lots of fun.
Yeah, I think New Orleans has got some fascinating stories buried there, energetically underneath the ground, just in that whole place. I think must be one of the most. That's New Orleans is one of the places in America that's on my bucket list. I would love to go.
On your bucket list.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I think that would be good. Yeah, I'd like to go as well. I just want to make sure that everybody that comes along is going to be as safe as possible. So, yeah.
Anyway, so let us move on to more local stuff again with our incredible, the hidden treasures of the African continent. Seriously, more and more stuff is coming out. And I actually read Bird Island. I finished it last week. I don't know if you guys actually read the book Bird Island, any of our viewers. But wow, how tragic. And then, of course, Mark Minnie, the guy who wrote the book, he was suicided, right? Was it 2018 or 2018?
Yeah.
So, because at the end, you know, he tries to find that kid, because how this came about was a child was admitted to hospital with a gunshot wound up his anus.
Oh,
And that started a whole investigation. But the tragedy of that whole thing is that, of course, when it got hot, the next thing there's a helicopter that lands on the landing strip of the hospital and grabs the child out and never to be seen again.
no.
So one wonders. And at the end, he says, if anyone knows, because it was the brother and the mother, because it was the brother and the mother that reported this. So I'm sure they must all have been something happened. But anyway, I would love to find out if anyone ever knows anything about that child in the Bird Island book. Very tragic, actually.
It's very tragic.
What's
Well,
your take on that?
a lot of the children though were, you know, the different categories. As you know, there's the different categories of those that run the organized rings, and any child would have just gone through that whole process. The end process being the final one, which is, being utilized for snuff films, and then if not snuff films, then dungeon, which the dungeon then would have been very real, would have been a lot of bestiality. And then those children that have been earmarked of like just what we would call disposable children, those disposable individuals then would have been in a totally different arena, in a totally different way. And that would have meant that if something untoward was to happen to any of those participants in the activities, then those whatever the remains are can be removed and either taken to the cheetah farm, or taken to the alligator farm, or taken to the snake park, any of those. And that's what
Or
that
pig
is. So
farm.
it would have been any of the snake farms. There's lots of snake farms in SA. So there's a one up in Pretoria. There's a very big one that breeds snakes for sale in pet shops actually, and for sale across wherever. The alligator ones, there is one up near the lodges, up near Mabula Lodge, right at the top there. There's one up the top there, which mainly takes everything, all the waste, shall we say, from Joburg, Pretoria, warm baths, all those areas around there, takes all of that, whatever the waste products are from that particular industry, that would be feeding up top there. And then you get those down in the Karoo, you get those in Cape Town, Western Cape, and then all the way across to Natal. They have a couple in Natal as well. It covers pretty much the whole of the country. It's not just one place. It depends on which area you've got which area you own. So you'd have like Natal would be one person, Cape would be Western Cape, Eastern Cape. There would be those. You'd have those two individuals that run all of the Cape province. Then you get OFS, Orange Free State, and then you get all of the Gauteng areas and the surrounding areas. So you get like Bophuthatswana. I don't even know whether that's still a thing, but yeah, Bophuthatswana, Lesotho, the Mafeking area, all of that. And Zimbabwe wasn't part of the South African. Zimbabwe was on its own. It belonged to someone else. So each of those areas was run by a different duke that would be running that area. All feeding back to, as in that's the level of the person. So the duke, and then you'll get the whole of South Africa, which would have been under the Rhodes' watch.
So you're saying the different people, like in America, the way I understand it, just from the way Jesse would explain it, the different quadrants. Okay, so here we would have the different provinces.
Yeah.
And you say there's a duke at the head of each province who runs that province. Now I'm sure we're talking about child transportation here,
Yeah.
and all the necessary evils that go along with that. Is there, and again, I want to just reiterate, Beverly cannot speak about names of people who are still alive.
Yeah.
So, is there anyone who has left the earth plane and held the title of Duke in this country that we can talk about?
Well, you would have had some individuals that would have been in the de Klerk and the Pitt-Botha governments. There would have been a few there that would have had that title, that would have had ownership of those areas. One of the ones had the Pretoria area, but he was a duke of that entire area. So that would have been all the way out to Warm Baths, all the way up to the top, and all the way out to Bophuthatswana from those days. And he would have owned that entire region. Very, very busy region, very wealthy.
So now when you're talking about them owning these regions, can you be more specific as to what exactly their operations entail within these regions?
So they would own they would own all rights to movies. So that includes the children's movies of any type. It includes snuff movies of any type in that region. So whatever films were being shot in that region, whatever movies were being done in that region, that person would have a slice of that pie. Absolute slice, if not actually own the rights to all of those movies, whatever was created in that region during the period that they were duke of that entire region. So it could have been anybody. I mean, Pretoria is quite big, and there's a lot of film studios, and there's a lot of rogue film studios that would have been part of it, because they were selling extremely well. The black market for snuff movies and for movies that has, underage children in it. So it's a huge market. So that would have been a very large chunk of their pie. The second chunk of the pie would have been the transportation or the provision. So that would be finding exactly whatever it was to the finders, and then those others that would come in. So the fixers and the finders would all report back up to the Duke. So they would be said, I need this type of child, that type of young person for that date, for that event, for whenever. They would have a slice. They would have a slice of whatever action there was there as well.
And your handler was overseeing all of this in South Africa.
He was overseeing, the various dukes in the different areas, and he would have to travel to these areas a lot, which was good, because then I was usually left behind, which was fine. So day off for me, which is even better. And then he'd have to go and check in on everybody, see if someone wasn't getting to the figures that they needed to get to. Like, for instance, if they weren't shooting enough movies, or there weren't enough films that were available, because that was a big part of the money that was raised, is selling this type of activity directly. So there was always a way. There used to be like a book that was published through all the different, what they call them, these party, I don't know what they call them, these shops that sell, I don't know, they sell appliances, tools, knickers, all that sort of thing. XX rated magazines, that sort of stuff. These shops, they used to have a book, and that book you could then see towards the back of the book. There'd be these adverts on where you could get hold of people to order XXX rated movies. And this was all part of their underground network of people saying, right, we've got this, we've got that. Because it was all sold on film. I mean, I used to get the canisters used to come in with the film in it, and then they used to run off copies and make copies of things. So you'd have this film, and it would pretty much go to the highest bidder.
So who was their market? Because if I'm hearing you, and also just from what you were saying in the past, you would go cross border, and I'm pretty damn sure that mine you spoke about in one of our previous, that was in Botswana. That's mine in Botswana. That's Botswana. In fact, one of the viewers actually mentioned the name of that mine. I did write it down, but I didn't think we were going to talk about it tonight. That she mentioned in Botswana. So definitely, it just felt to me like you guys were going there. So the kids were being trafficked to these mine owners or managers or whatever, these mega wealthy, usually foreigners, not often South Africans, usually these foreign mining magnates or these big mining companies often did not have South Africans at the head. It was always some type of American or some type of a European. I remember
Yes.
that very well. Um, so that was going there. So now we're looking at these movies. Now, is this part of Spinnekop, die Spinnekop, the spider? Was
Yeah.
this what they called die Spinnekop, the criminal network that
Yeah.
a lot of the politicians were involved in? Okay, so this was the spider that included, obviously, now with Peter Rhodes at the head, and then all the dukes of the different provinces
Yeah.
taking instruction, him visiting them. Obviously, they had to go and do depraved things in their provinces, like he was doing in the UK before coming to South Africa, including bestiality, including First Nation kids, including African kids of all tribes, and white kids, no doubt, as well.
Yeah.
So kids were being trafficked. And along with that was also the country's resources, like the rhino horn, right?
Yes.
The elephant tusks, the gold, the diamonds, minerals, resources, wildlife, all of that stuff was now included in this. Is that right? So this is the
Yes.
Spinnekop, the spider.
And also Spinnekop also included, which I don't know whether it's commonly known, it might not be, but I'm going to say it anyway, is Spinnekop also included um, film footage of individuals that were in power that were partaking of CYP, so children and young people, activities with CYP, children and young people that would have been deemed illegal in those days. It would have been absolutely illegal to even be with a 15-year-old person because that is under the age of consent. And there was a lot of those as well, because remember, when they start with the children, they start with them at a certain age, but then they literally bring you up, or you grow up in such a way that you get so used to all this nonsense that's happening around you that by the time you get to sort of 13, 14, 15, and generally at 16, they will release you from that into a different type of indentured slavery in a way. But when you go through all of this, it's nothing then by the time you get to 15 to be sleeping with a politician or a person of interest. In other words, they would say, those that run the country would say, we're interested in Mr. Joe Bloggs over there or Mr. Smith because we want him for this information or that information. So they'd have a reason why somebody had been targeted. Yeah. And that target would then be your target, and that's where you'd be taken. But you would be told, ask these questions or talk about this, and they would then be filming that. So they'd get somewhere like a really nice hotel or something like that. One of the favorites was always the Carlton Hotel in Joburg. Carlton Hotel was always like on the list. The other ones that were on the list was part of the Kursaf group. They always used to provide safe hotels for, people of interest and high up individuals like politicians or members of parliament or serving royalty, etc. They were always able to provide 5-star quality places to stay, but they were always then able to allow whatever needed to be filmed next door always be a suite, or it'd always be something where you could make sure that you could put all the unit up and film whatever's happening in the suite next door without any problem. And that was part of Spinnekop's power, is to have so many indecent exposure type of tapes and film on these individual, that they just say, you know, you did this on this date with that particular youngster. We were filming next door. Now this is what we need you to do. And this is, you know, and this is part of
Yeah.
their assets. And these assets go on for centuries, because some of these assets are still remaining in lockup with those that now run the country. They've got them, so they can go right back to, you know, the early 1950s, 1960s. There's film of these individuals doing whatever they were doing, uh, rather illegally.
Pretty, yeah, pretty much like an Epstein Island type scenario where, obviously everything is taped and therefore you have blackmail
Exactly.
material with them.
You're
And
right.
I mean,
You're right,
how,
Shanti. That's exactly what it was. It's a similar to an Epstein type of environment, but without the high tech. You know, having to
right.
film things on a normal camera.
Especially in South Africa. In those days, we weren't exactly high tech.
No, not at all. Not high. Oh my God, can you imagine? Yeah, they had to make a little hole in the wall. Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah.
Anyway, but that's interesting. So I'm going to ask you a question. Were you, and I mean, you can answer this or not, however you feel free. Were you used as bait for some of these high level politicians ever?
I think I was used as bait if, and I'll say this, only if I was meeting what the politicians' leanings were. So some of the politicians had very unusual leanings. And if I was part of that unusual leaning, then that's when they would say, right, she can go. And she's got what that particular person would want. Because they they each seemed to, in my view, they each had a different type of a type, if you like, that they used to like, or they would go for, that would weaken their resolve. Whereas, you know, if there was a youngster of a certain age and a certain look, and it wasn't really what they were into or interested in, it was easy enough for them to turn away and say, "Oh, you know, I can't be bothered." But if there was somebody that was the right look, the right size, the right sort of age group, etc., if I was able to fit that particular bill, then I would be sent on that job. And then you'd have a whole bunch of others, children and young people, that would have their type, and then they could decide, right, that person needs that type of person, and we get sent on different jobs. It just depends. If your face fits in that particular job, then yes, you would be sent out for that job.
No, no mercy, no empathy. Just you do it. Okay. So, can you tell us in South Africa, when you were around doing what you were doing then, who were the families that were? We know there's bloodline families controlling this country for sure. We think Cyril Ramaphosa is the president. What a joke. I will say loudly that I believe 100% Johan Rupert runs this country. There's no doubt in my mind about that. He's the handler of that DA guy, the one that went to America, Steenhuisen.
Yeah,
Oppenheimer is the handler of Ramaphosa, and Oppenheimer is the 2IC of Rupert. And these two have been, and along with the other Stellenbosch Mafia families, then you get Koos Becker, who
yeah,
is Mr. owns the media in this country, and uh, the Visser guy, is it Koos Visser or Kobus Visser? One of the, I don't know which one is Kobus and which one is Koos. I think it's Koos Beckett and Kobus Visser. If it wasn't Visser the rugby player, or is it his father? I can't remember. But those they own like Pep stores and Checkers
yeah,
and
they do.
Ackermans. I mean, these are the guys that own the massive. And the Pep stores guy has
Yeah,
absolutely enriched himself on poor black money in this country.
Exactly.
If
Yeah.
anyone should be ashamed of himself, that guy should, because obviously he's a good businessman, so he saw a gap
Yeah.
when he took it. A businessman is
Yeah.
going to say that. But when you look at how they've been exploiting, I mean, he was the one from when I was born already, Pep Stores was around. And that's like sort of a cheaper shop for clothing and stuff like that. So it wasn't African clothing or anything that he was bringing in to uphold their heritage, obviously bringing in all the Western Chinese stuff.
Yeah.
And he has made billions and billions and billions out of making cheap Western clothes for African people. And of course, Checkers as well. And Checkers is like a store, a supermarket, but also lower income group. And that's his as well. So,
Mm.
and these guys, you got to know when they pay their staff, it's all minimum wage. These guys pay minimum. They decide what minimum wage is, and
Yeah.
that's how they keep a handle. I mean, we could go into that stuff on another
Another
show, but
show.
these
Yeah.
are
But
yeah, but the
it's very
mm,
it's very part of it, because the reason why these bloodlines were originally set up was because they were there so that
did Beverly go or did I go? Can somebody just tell me if I'm here or Beverly's here because everything is frozen? I think it might be Beverly. Usually mine tells me. Okay, Beverly froze. All right. Well, let's wait for Bev. But it's super interesting, when we start talking about this. And South Africa has been a country that has been literally off the international map for the longest time. Okay, Bev seems to be back now. So
I'm
I'm gonna
back.
add her and I'm gonna
I
remove you. That's
as
frozen there.
just as I was about to say, then they just chuck me off. It's always the way. We know this, don't we, Chanti? Every time I'm going to say something, they try to knacker me each time.
Exactly. It's like
Jeez Louise, come on now. Oh, my word. Right, let's try again.
I'm not gonna.
No. The reason why they set up the 13 families, the Illuminati or influential families across the world, was in direct opposition to the 12 families, the Christ consciousness families. It was to be in direct opposition. And to make it more difficult, they made 13 families instead of 12. Man, there, see, got it out now. So you've got also, I think we've got the Rothschilds and you've got the
Right.
usual ones, but you've also there's the Collins family, and the Collins family has a very large circle, if you like, of very influential individuals in SA as well. And you've got the usual ones, there's the Rhodeses, obviously you know about them, and you've got the different aspects of, there's the Rosenbergs too, they're also part of it. But then you get other families like the Bill Clintons. The Clintons families goes back, and they go right back to being Illuminati caregivers or lackeys, if you know what, they're like scouts. So they're not of the bloodline, but they assist the bloodline. So in other words, you would find a lot of the bloodlines would be running different areas as dukes, because they're part of those original bloodlines. And then they mingle with each other. They also mingle in with the middle management and upper management families. So that as scouts, they watch and they choose and they move in the right circles to pull all those bloodlines in, to be able to continue with whatever it is their new agenda might be. At the moment, the new agenda, of course, is to be all part of the new, as they call it, the World Health Organization, or the New World Order, which is not going to happen. They won't be able to do that, but they're still pushing for that particular trajectory.
Wow. I don't think they'll get that right.
I don't think they will.
It
No, I don't
can't
think they
be.
will.
Yeah. I mean, they try a lot. They've tried everything. It's really up to us, and I think too many of us have woken up now. So, who of those, when we're looking at like South Africa in the beginning, we of
Yeah.
course had the Hollanders in here first, and then the Brits arrived, and blah blah blah. But when we're looking at the mining families, we're looking at De Beers. But do you know that Oppenheimer actually has stolen from De Beers? Because when you look at the original coming in here, it was first the Hollanders, remember that. And the Hollanders never colonized. They were trading. And they were already trading with the Khoisan because at the time,
Yes.
the Khoisan and the Xhosa people were in this country. The others that have come since then were not even from South Africa, the majority of them. These guys that are shouting, kill the boer, kill the farmer, they weren't. He's from Zimbabwe and Ethiopia, Malema. He's not even from South Africa. So originally it was the Khoisan and the Xhosa. So the Dutch came in and they were trading. And then they came in and they actually were originally friends with a Khoisan. So the Dutch and the Khoisan actually started procreating, and from that the Griquas were born, and that's the early colored race, right?
Mm.
So if and I don't remember the guys now, but then one of the early farmers, his name is the Griqua guy, Andre something, actually gave the original De Beer land, mining his land, and he was mining and small time mining. Then somehow the was it the Oppenheimer Anglo guys, those guys that
Mm.
came in,
Mm.
that's when they brought in the gold rush. Suddenly there was this gold rush, and then they took over the land from De Beer. They just stole De Beer's land in this gold rush. They brought everyone in because they did not want De Beer actually to have it. Right now, there's still a court case going on where Oppenheimer, De Beer, the De Beer descendants are actually suing the Oppenheimers. So the Oppenheimers, so when you're looking at the original land
Mm.
claims and stuff, we have
Yes.
to look at that because the original De Beers mines, right? And that's Hollanders, yes. But they were not colonizers. They were actually married into each other and then were given land by the original landowners as part of the family because they were marrying daughters and sons
Of course.
already until the Oppenheimers come in and the Ruperts come in and
Yes.
those and their ancestors. That's the thing. So we must remember these things. I don't know. It's crazy. It's crazy. So now where we are, who is at the helm of things? What do you know about what's going on now? And I'd also like to find out. I'd be very interested to know about that. If you're the Klerk government, what was going on there? Because we know from Bird Island, the guy with the big ears, that they would not mention his name in the book. The minister, Perk Botha. I will say it
Yes.
again. Perk Botha and Magnus Milan were the two ones that we could not really make head or tail of. Perk Botha, Magnus Milan. Magnus Milan was actually the most powerful guy in the country at the time. He was
Mm.
Minister of Defense. It might have been Pierre that was president, but Magnus completely called the shots,
Yeah.
literally, and in every other way. And then, of course, there was, yeah, Pick, Minister of Foreign Affairs. Oh, he was so horrible. Oh.
Yeah, he was really horrible. But Magnus had a bloodline. You know, he's part of one of those elite bloodlines, which was they were part of the alchemists, and they had the major assassination abilities. And they also had, on some of the bloodline offshoots, they had a lot of occult practices there too. But they were a mixture, which I thought was very interesting, is they were like a mixture of Celts, the Druids, and the Egyptians all together in one. They didn't bring in, because there's another bloodline that's a developed Oriental one, so the Asian one, there's also an Asian part of the lineage as well. And then there was another one which was from Canaan, or the Canaanites. So all of that had been brought together. So Magnus Milan had a direct descendant linkage in his birthrights and his bloodlines, not always down the female line, but female and male line. He was able to get double descendants in a way through history to be part of some of the most powerful satanic bloodlines. So, and as we know, there were the 12 tribes of God that were given a particular very great bloodline, which was angelic, and then Shaitan or Lucifer also had the 12 bloodlines on his side, and he then created that energetic blessing onto his to counteract what Lord God had done with his angelic realms. So you've got all these different aspects, but then the one which is the 13th one, which is the final bloodline, which was the God Christ consciousness lineage of Jesus Christ, that was that bloodline. That's when the 13th or final bloodline comes in. And that was something that also then on the Shaitan side, the satanic side, you'd have the satanic house of David, which was the house of David lineage, but also believed that they had the lineage back to Jesus Christ at the same time. So from that, you've got, they argue about this 13 satanic bloodlines, which go directly back to both Lucifer, but they also claim they have some of the Christ consciousness blood in them as well. So you can see where this argument is just a fight between dark and light all along. And these go right back to Babylon and to Nimrod and to all of those, all the mysterious religions. That's all very much part of it. And, you had the Grand Council down in South Africa, and they would have ruled behind the scenes. So Magnus Milan, he was part of the Grand Council, or the governing body. He was also part of the, the mysterious religious aspect. So where you've got both, these concentration of Illuminatis, oligarchs, millionaires, etc. They would have all been part of the Grand Council, because then it's not just what's happening in South Africa. It was what happened to what they could send out of South Africa. So they were sending assets out of South Africa. So that's gold, diamonds, copper, land, oil drilling, all that sort of thing. That was all being sent out of the country as well. And the elite certainly would have had part of that. They would have worked hand in glove with all the other elites around the world, because they all know each other and they are the ones that control the masses. So, and that includes, royalty, kings and queens, etc. Kings and queens don't really have any major say, and they don't really have a way in which that they can exert power, because they've lost most of their power now.
Yeah, they sure have, and that's very interesting, because the power has obviously been transferred now, but that's also, we'll talk about that soon. Talking about strange occurrences in this country, we've also, the Karoo, as we often speak about, especially Crawfordnet area in New Bethesda, there where I grew up, there where I was at school. A lot of my friends still live there, and are around there. And of course, that's the area that our Johann Rupert has been buying up at the rate of knots over the past few decades. He owns just about all the land in that area. And in that area, now I have no doubt why, because it's sacred land. It's the oldest, again, as I've always said, that's where you're going to find the ancient Bushman paintings and all of that stuff. So he would certainly know something about that area, particularly that I guess the average person does not know. There's the
Yes.
Owl House there, as we've spoken about before, and there have been a lot of UFO type sightings in that area. So and UFO crashes even, right?
Yes.
So I'd
Yes.
love to know your take on that whole escapade. What on earth is that?
Well, that is that particular area of the Karoo going through. That is very well known. I think the last major crash was in 2021 in the Karoo area. So, and that was, I think that was near one of the main rivers. There was one there that went down. But part of the agreement that was made with the whole Water de Klerk and Magnus and etc., particularly Magnus, he was absolutely sure, and he said, this is part of any investigation into anything that falls out of the sky. So that be that a UFO, be that a meteor, be that, you know, a Sputnik or something similar to that sort of thing that falls out of the sky. That was all deemed to be part of national security. And he had begun by saying whatever's being investigating has to come through their offices, and it's what they call a need to know, or a very high level of security clearance. They had already started this in those years. In fact, is to ensure there was no disclosure, and they had an agreement with other countries that, particularly with America, that America would assist them in extracting anything that came down in that space across the whole of South Africa. That they would send through to South Africa a crew that was expert in the cleanup and removal. So that means any, you know, meteor parts, any UFO parts, whatever came from the sky, whatever fell from the sky that wasn't normal, they had this crew that they would then help and use and move any evidence into another country, so that it was off South African soil. And that's a group that's made up of very specific surnames. So that's the DuPonts, the Winthrops, Whitneys, Milners, Drexel is another one, Carnegie's, Mellon, Watson is another one. They're all part of those 13 families that have agreed to make sure that whatever is happening with the star people, whatever's coming in, whatever information is coming in, no matter what type of information it is, that they would act as like henchmen in a way, you know. They would find a way to discredit, remove the information, cut off contact, so that people wouldn't actually know what was going on. So they were ones that ensured that a program of disinformation, a program of no commitment, no comment, no communication, that all continued with them, because they had the sons and daughters of those key named individuals or bloodlines that knew what was at stake, and they made sure that whatever it was, it would be kept under wraps. It would be kept quiet. So you had a lot that was happening in the Karoo area, a lot of what you would call crash areas, lots of individuals that said they had sightings, they were scared off by these people. So they had a level of free enterprise to go and do whatever they wanted to do, but to keep everything under wraps. And that's why only now do you start seeing people coming forward and saying openly, yes, in 1960 or in 1970, this is what I was doing, and this is what I saw in the sky, or I saw that fall out of the sky. Because people are now realizing, yes, I can say what I've seen, because they're not going to come after me. But in South Africa, if you had anything like that even remotely happen to you, you just stayed completely quiet, and there was no ways that you could say anything. And I think it was a pleasant surprise for everybody to say, well, actually, now you can be more open. You can talk about what you've seen, because people are writing about what they saw, in the 70s, in the 80s. If you just research on the internet, sightings UFO sightings or USO sightings across all of South Africa, and you'll be surprised how many unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial, whatever they want to call it now.
Oh, yeah.
We've always got new classifications for these things. But yeah, so this is all part of it, because the serpents that are the 13 families that are running South Africa, they've all been pushed down now. They're not able to take on as much as they did before, because the level of cooperation between continents is not as high as it was. Since the new digital age, it's lessened a great deal. A lot of the families, including myself, a lot of the families that were part of those, the 13 family names, a lot of those individuals have said, with very little encouragement, just, I don't want to be part of this. I don't want to be part about that. I don't want to say anything about this. And this is what's happening is those youngsters that have got the name, that are stuck with the name, they can choose now to get out of the family and live their own best lives according to light, and turn their back on it. And there's a lot of the newer generation are saying, no, I don't want to be part of this. So it's slowly but surely it's eroding. So these allied families now are not as strong as they used to be. And they did try to make sure that they discredited anybody that said anything about what they had seen. They would find some hole in it or something, or put it down to some natural weather phenomena or something like that.
Oh my goodness, yes. And remember in those early days in South Africa, um, we were so restricted. I mean, we were allowed nothing. There was no TV, there was no radio. Well, there was radio, but you were allowed to hear nothing. I mean, remember, Beverly, up until the early 80s,
Yeah.
as a white woman, I could not buy property without my husband's signature.
Yes, that's
I could
right.
not buy a car without my husband
Yeah.
telling me, okay, I could buy a car. I mean, seriously, we were only, the women in this country were only allowed to start voting in the 60s.
Yeah.
So this country was so patriarchal. We, as the women in this country, and I'm going to say the white women initially, we fought that patriarchal system. I want to
Yeah.
tell you, I stood in front of UCT fighting for Nelson Mandela's freedom. If my mother knew how many times I was nearly arrested, she would die. I never told her. And for that fake, what's his name? Gibson Makanda wasn't even the real Nelson Mandela anyway. I'm very happy I did not get a criminal record for that fake stuff. That's for sure.
Well, you're
Gosh.
still outspoken, and you've got your channel now. You don't need to be holding pickets outside of UCLA.
Yeah, UCT, UCT.
UCT.
Being all cool with the students.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
totally.
I think that
Wow.
the families are still, they're still trying to, they do still participate in disinformation, and individuals that are coming out and talking about what they've seen, particularly where they've seen craft. And there's a lot more people now that have seen craft all over South Africa and are saying, this is what I saw and this is what I think it
My,
is. They're very outspoken.
my friend takes her dogs walking every morning, like really early, like 5, 6, and it's like dark. Okay, it's winter. How she does it, God only knows, but bless her. Um, she looks up every morning and she'll tell me. Like the one day in particular, she said there was 20 like spacecraft, and you can see them and they move. And then there's like they come in like four at a time, and then four will be together. Whoop, they move, and it's almost like at a stop street. And then someone saying, okay, pass. And then four come, whoop, pass. Next four come, whoop. She watches this every morning. And it's like fascinating. It is absolutely, and that's obviously we are near Cape Town. Okay, we're a couple of hours away from Cape Town,
Yeah.
but Table Mountain is well renowned
Yeah, it's
for
busy.
having all sorts of things going on there. otherworldly activity. But I think they've hijacked our mountain. We've got to take that mountain back, because I don't think there's really good things that go on in that mountain anymore. I think there's a lot of transportation that goes on in that mountain.
Yeah.
Can you verify that from
Yeah,
what you
there
know?
is. There's at the bottom of Table Mountain. There's a couple of rooms that are carved into the bottom of the mountain, and there's like I do remember there's like these water pipes or something. I don't know where the water pipes go, but there are water pipes on the side, and a lot of the miners were held in those underground tunnel rooms. But what they did is, one of the kids had said that she had taken a stone, and she'd put the stone on top of the pipe, because she noticed that there was, where the pipe is, there were lots of little stones on the pipes, and some of the kids that could write had scratched their names into the side of the wall, because the pipe is at the top up here, and then they would be able to, the taller kids, because it's towards the top of where this underground like tunnel is, they would put these stones, and the older kids realized that on the pipe there was loads and loads of stones that had been placed on the pipe to tell people these kids have been here. So, but I think
Wow.
yeah, it's very weird. And then what some of the other kids had said, that they further in, they had seen like sheets of metal or signs or something. And so it was obviously being used by something else, either maybe the roads or transportation department or whatever probably uses that for something else. But the key thing is that these pipes that run underneath, it was the cave or the facility to keep the children in order to move them at night under darkness, under the cover of darkness. This area was where these pipes were. So that's a good clue, is to understand what water, or because they were water pipes, what pipes have been put in under Table Mountain using the base of the under air. Did they ever run not cables? Did they run? Well, they could have run cables, I suppose, too. But these are these underground areas that has water pipes and other types of cables, and they've been used to store roadworks stuff. So whatever it was that was in the roadworks, it's being stored in there, and that's where the children were held. So if anybody's got any videos like that, it'd be good to see, because they should then have these pipes, and above the pipes there should be these little bits of stones. And if there were no space for the stones, they'd put stones on top of stones. So you've got these little like layers of stones. They're like a stone monument in a way on top of the pipe. And so if you ever see that, then you'll know that that was one of the tunnels, the worksmen's tunnels, that were used to move and transport children, because it's the children that put those stones there.
I can't wait. I seriously can't wait for this whole thing just to blow up, erupt, and not the kids either, because really, this is so crazy.
But at least we know that if anybody has got any footage like that, or if anybody does go, because I think there are climbers and walkers and things that they must go to Table Mountain at some point, or along, where the Lion's Head is. That there must be people that are walking there. It's going to have to come out at some point that these tunnels, because they're tunnels that are used for storage. They're used to store roadworks stuff, because some of the kids were saying that they were playing with the cones, these plastic cones. They were playing games with the plastic cones while they were waiting to be moved. And as their drugs had started wearing off, before the next evening time came to get the next amount of water that had been laced with a substance, they then were able to play a bit with whatever was in that tunnel. And it's small enough, not very very small, but small, like a small room. That's it, very small, not a huge set of tunnels, but that is what those tunnels are used for.
Well, I'm just happy that this is the end because, oh man, I
Yeah,
just really, it is unbelievable to me that evil like that exists, that you do that to a child, that you are that unfeeling. I mean, child animal to me is the same thing. I mean, I'm not saying kids and whatever. You get what I'm saying. It's a
yeah,
defenseless, innocent
yeah,
creation of God. And if
yeah.
anyone thinks an animal doesn't feel or have emotions and senses and
Wow.
has goes through the most horrific, um, and if we don't think, why do we think there's animal sacrifice? Because of course they harvest that loosh, that
Of
blood.
course.
That's
Yeah.
their energy. That's their soul. And slaughterhouses, people, for those of us who are wanting to literally change the world into a better place, you have to consider your source of meat because slaughterhouses, now remember the town planners are all Freemasons, okay? And these places, like their slaughterhouses, their churches, their arenas, where crowds get together, is usually on ley lines. And when there's a ley line, that's the most powerful energy portal point to harvest energy. So, slaughterhouses, the animals that are being slaughtered, rest assured, that is one big fat loosh harvesting exercise every single day. You have to think what you are supporting. It's not about being a vegetarian or a vegan. It's about you are participating in that. And as long as you are mindlessly participating in loosh harvesting, because you are, they will continue to eat our children as well. We live in a mirror universe. So we've got to be aware of these things. We really, really, really do. And part of the mind control, I'm actually listening to uh, uh, Chris Letare. I always get the surname wrong. Um, and one of the things, how they were programmed, was part of their, when they get these images, they flash the images in front of the kids. Many of those are of animals being slaughtered.
Yes.
So images of animals in a slaughterhouse. And don't think your little pork chops arrived beautifully in the packet just like that or whatever. We have to be accountable for
Yeah.
everything as well. Goodness me, Beverly, thank you. I'm wondering if there's anything that we still need to talk about. I know that for me, it was really also about speaking about the families in control of this
Mm.
country and knowing that it's not independent to South Africa. South Africa is not
No.
sovereign at all. We are controlled, we are bought, we are abused, we are part of a much bigger system, and we scream and shout at the politicians. Meanwhile, they're just the puppets. We have to look behind what's happening. We have to look, and not just now. Um, these disgusting National Party, seriously, those guys were absolutely repulsive. They were in government since the beginning of colonization, and they never ever left. And they have done horrific things, not only to the indigenous people of this continent, but to everyone living here. We've lived a lie believing that our government was suppressed by the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, back at the ranch, our government was as active in the suppression, lying to us, keeping us stupid like little sheep.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, I mean, they're banning pornography, and I'm not against it. Hey, I can't see that pornography is good for anyone, but hey, that's just my personal opinion. Um, but yet they engaging in those types of activities behind the scene. Sis,
Mm.
man, seriously. And FW de Klerk, he's still alive. I'm sure he's still alive. He's like 3 centimeters away from the grave. I saw him the other day talking about something. That man, and I have no doubt he took his own wife out. Seriously, I have no
Well, yeah,
doubt
I would
that
say
he
so.
was behind Marika de Klerk. We want to talk about that quickly. Should we talk quickly about Marika de Klerk?
Yeah, I think with Marika, if you have a look at the autopsy, or if you have a look online to see what the actual police report says, you can see there's so many inconsistencies in there, and then suddenly it all becomes consistent, and you think, so somebody was able to sanitize the timeline, because that's what they do. They'll send in somebody and say, this doesn't look right. People are going to pick it up, go in and fix it. So you get a different type of cleaner to what I was. You get those that go in and clean the back end. So in other words, clean up whatever the paperwork is, clean up what's been said, make sure that it's sanitized, and make sure it's okay for anyone to look at it in the public, so that they don't pick up anything. So that would have been done, because if you look at what was originally there to what was then published and what's available in the records, two different things. But she would have either got to the end of her usefulness, or she would have seen something that she shouldn't have seen, and then maybe wanted to say something about it, which, as you know, is not allowed. Yeah, there we go. There's the thumbs up.
That's what I've always said. Now, just again for context, I often forget that when we go off on a little tangent, our international viewers don't really know. F.W. de Klerk was the president just before Nelson Mandela came in.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was laying claim to freeing Mandela, but of course we all know that was way, 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 way planned already. He was just
Yes,
supposed to have that, and then of course him and Nelson Mandela jointly won the Nobel Peace Prize. They really try to paint this narrative of a unified South Africa. It's rubbish. Um, Anyway, and then after Mandela came in, the ANC took over. Slowly but surely, de Klerk sort of moves out the way. He then gets divorced from his wife Marika, and he marries some. Wasn't it the Brazilian? Whose wife did he marry?
yeah. It was some other.
Some other president's ex-wife or something from some
Yeah.
Portuguese. I don't know, something like that. But he remarried, and then a couple of years later, out of the blue, his wife, Marika, his ex wife, just gets taken out. She was living in Cape Town. And I know that estate because I actually had friends living there too. I'd been there before, which is why I was like, what? And it's high security.
Yeah.
It's all these security places. So, and then she gets murdered by one of the security guards. And and then of course this big mystery around it, but then it was now the security guards at the complex, or the apartment complex, I don't know what you guys in the States call it, that I do believe that he was found guilty, or there was something about that, but
Yes.
absolutely not. There is no ways. What I say, Marika de Klerk knew stuff about stuff that she was not meant to know.
Yeah.
I saw her. She had a document of something. When I looked into that, there was a piece of paper, a document that she had, and it was hidden. And I think that had something to do with why I feel like there was information on not just the clerk. I don't necessarily actually think if I'm honest enough, necessarily he had it done, but he would have known about it, and there was it was related to that. That's what I say happened with Marika de Klerk. She knew too
Yeah,
much.
I would agree. I would agree.
And I actually wouldn't be surprised if she was even threatening to blackmail FW with it. That would not surprise me. If she in the divorce or in their acrimonious state. But that again is speculation. All this is speculation, guys, you know. But right now, many of us have had the veils lifted.
Yeah.
Joanne, you're such a star-studded girl. Thank you. I so appreciate you, honey.
Oh, there we go, Jan. Oh, that's wonderful.
We're Australian dollars. Thank you, Joanne. Appreciate you very much. So that's what I say. And I say that none of these guys now, I'd be interested to know also now with the new lot coming in, Cyril Ramaphosa, Jacob Zuma, Thabo Mbeki. I actually did a thing on Thabo Mbeki because he was highly ridiculed for the AIDS. He didn't want antiretrovirals.
Oh,
But
right.
yeah, but then because he'd already heard that the American government was targeting Africa and Brazil to wipe out with the Africans and the Brazilians with AIDS. So they literally were injecting AIDS into the African people. And he refused to comply with that, which is pretty much why. And he was saying, like, eat healthy or whatever. And she was mentioned, I'll never forget that. She mentioned beetroot, lemon, garlic, stuff like that. She was using African wisdom
Of
to
course.
saying, you don't need antiretrovirals. Why does a starving nation need tablets? They need to be sustained. They need to be fed. You need to feed the people in a healthy way. But of course, and then she was completely ridiculed and called Mrs. Beetroot. And she died. She died too. She died in a hospital. Apparently, she was an alcoholic and died of some liver failure. Who knows? I
Oh,
don't believe
wow.
that.
No, well, and but this is it. As I said, the disinformation is huge, and they are able to do that very, very easily.
Yeah.
And it's one of those that, because it's always such a big debate about which families are part of what and who it is, but all you got to do is look at what are the key families that ended up in South Africa and which are the ones that are still in South Africa, because then you can trace it backwards quite easily. The Collins family are here. There's the Bundy family. The Conts are here. Astors are here. Obviously, the Rhodeses are still there. And all of those have got different offshoots. Plus, as well, and let's not forget, on top of that, we've also got the Asian families that are part of the Illuminati as well. So if you start looking at all of these key families and you see particularly the different kings, so where you've got, the Zulu kings and the other kings, trace backwards and backwards and backwards to see right in the beginning which of these Illuminati families were taking their wares, if you like, or their ideas to the various kings. But they're not necessarily just kings, looking at which are the families within those nations that would be happy to run South Africa. Then you'll see who's working with who, because it's so obvious. You can then see, the Pukworters, the de Klerks, the others, and those that were all part of the time when I was still working in that. Collins family, absolutely. Rockefellers, not so much. But people like there's also the Pulteney family. They're not necessarily Illuminati family, but they work for some of the Illuminati families. And these are all individuals that are either heavily into gold, copper, precious gems. So, things, not necessarily diamonds are separate. They will go to Amsterdam. But these are all the families that would have been right years and years back before the Rhodeses arrived in South Africa. They would have already made those inroads because they did all the hard work first in the 30s, 40s, and 50s. And that's when all the dukes came in and started seeing the value what do they call it? The sweat asset value. There we go. Sweat asset value. So there'd be a number on top of your head, and that's what you would be worth in each of those categories. So as a breeder, snuff movie, the usual, which is the other one, which is the ransom movies. So that's going in to do a particular job with a particular high level, high value person. And then the usual, which is, the run of the mill servicing, that have a value for that. So if you're lucky, you'll have a quarter of a million asset value on top of your head. And if you start getting under sort of 80,000, then you're disposable.
Wow, that's wild. I have one closing question for you, though.
Yeah.
You said you were a cleaner. Now, I
Yes.
wanted to actually ask you that. The way I understand a cleaner, I watch The Blacklist, okay?
Okay. Good. Well done.
Do you watch The Blacklist? Who watches The Blacklist? I watch The Blacklist. What's the James? Come on. Oh, man. He's so cool. Anyway, where they talk about when they've done a job, the cleaners come.
Yeah.
So I want to know what that entailed for you. What does it mean for Beverli to have been a cleaner? Were you like cleaning up, because you mentioned the hunts, you cleaned up after the hunts, the child hunts, stuff like that. I know it cannot be a pleasant job, but can you just kind of tell us what that is? And how old were you when you started this?
Well, when you're no longer that valuable on the list to do jobs on your back, shall we call it? That's the best way to put it. A job on your back, then you're not that valuable. So when you're young, up to say 12, maybe at a push, possibly maybe 13, usually not. Up to 12 is your most valuable. But then when you start sort of entering that change, where you start, producing hormones and you come on your moon cycle and you do all that, you're not that, unless you have an individual that's particularly into blood sports or things like that, then that becomes more valuable. But it's not as valuable as selling, the act, what act I'm talking about, that act. It's not as valuable. So then they've got to find other jobs. You have to have other jobs to do. So the other jobs you can do from 13 through to 16 is you can then be one of the cleaners. So they teach you, don your gloves, get your bucket. This is what you got to look for. Got to put everything into a bucket, scrape, clean, pick it up. And then they also teach you to put a stripe under your nose of camphor cream, and then you put Vaseline and a stripe on the top of your nose, which then stops you from smelling flesh that's been left or that's been attacked by wild animals. You will then pick that up and put it into buckets. And what they do is they follow you around with like a little either a motorbike with a side cart, depending on where you are. You put that in, which country you're in, you can put your buckets in there, and you just carry on and you walk. Basically, you walk in a line, all of you, and then you pick up what you just look down and you pick up, because they can't afford to really leave a trace of human remains. You cannot have human remains, because if they find something from a human, immediately the authorities will know there's something untoward happening here. So the cleaning crew as such is generally sort of age 13 up to age 15, maybe 16, till they can't control you anymore. So 16 and above, they're not cleaners unless they've decided that that's the job they want to do within the organization, and then they will run the cleaners. So then you'll have the higher ups that will be the ones that will know where the drop up of points, what you can take to which facility. So if you've had small pieces and minor items, you can take that to Snake Park, or you can take it to the alligators, because they'll be able to grab that and eat that without any problem. Usually the larger pieces and that would go to, the leopard farm or one of the lion parks or breeding facilities where they take in whatever, or the pig farms. pig farms. The smaller pieces will go to the pig farms because it just gets mixed in with their swill, and then once it's gone, it's hidden. So depending on what you want and depending on where you fit, if you decide you want to be a cleaner, that's one of the best jobs because you don't have to do anything else. All you have to do is pick up bits and make sure that it gets hidden to the various areas that, like, Snake Park or the piggy farm. So the joke still to this day is make sure you've got a piggy bucket in your kitchen. So the piggy bucket is where you pick up stuff and put whatever's been going on, either in a bestiality show where the end show is the ones where, whoever's in the middle with an animal will probably end up expiring. So if it's a donkey or a very big dog, then when they're busy with that stuff, usually it ends with the human person, expiring because you're not actually built to take that size. So yeah, that's what you do. So you just got to pick up the bits and make sure that they go in the various places and get them to the guys that are going to take them and drop them off. At the end of it is like a long recycling process.
Yeah, someone just says we eat the animals and they'll eat us. Well, I'm so sorry, Beverli, that you experienced that because my gosh.
Oh, thank you. I'm
But
more
I'm very
sorry for those now that are going through it because now it's far more organized and far more vicious actually than what it was in my day. In my day, it wasn't as vicious as it is now. It's not
Was
as
this
easy.
when you were doing the cleaning job, obviously you were a certain age, was that, I would imagine, when you were in South Africa already? So that happened here. That wasn't in the UK. That was here.
No, I think I did do some cleaning in the UK, but then obviously the rest of the cleaning happened in SA. That's how come I know, because I was popular-ish, but my very, 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 very unfortunately popular days was back in the UK. That was when I was much younger, and when you're young, you're very, very, very popular. Everybody, and when they say everyone wants a piece of you, you can take it literally. Yeah, they want a piece of you. But the older you get, the less attractive you become to those types of people, the people that are attracted to minors. You're not that attractive. The moment you get over 13, 14, you're not that attractive anymore. It becomes a difference. Like you have a set, like, shelf life, shall we say. You have a shelf life up to age 13, and then you move into a different genre. And then after that, sort of 15, 16, the moment you start really looking older and that you're going through, prepubescent or adolescence or whatever, then that's a totally different section of people. And that's when your value starts dropping.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us again. I always say, I know disclosure on these topics,
It is.
it's never easy. It certainly doesn't get any easier to hear it. But wow, thank you. South Africa, we have definitely a dark past and a dark current situation, and it's time for us to stand up.
Yes, and it's a past as well that a lot of people are just not aware of. I think that the more that this comes out and the more evidence we see, like if anybody goes to Table Mountain, find a video and do a video of whatever you're able to find at the bottom, because it's literally at the bottom and it's carved into the rock face. So if you find anything, please share it with the show, because that will just be part of the evidence to prove what I'm saying.
Right. Thank you, Beverli.
It's a pleasure. And thank you for reading my book.
Yes, I absolutely am, and I'm loving it. And for all of you, Beverly's book, The Horse Girl. I survived, I survived abuse and a terrorist attack. This is my story of hate, hope, and healing.
Healing, yes.
Yay.
Oh, well.
Had it not been for that, you would not be sitting here today. So I really appreciate you.
And thank you for all the good work that you're doing. I mean, you're definitely sharing inconvenient truths, aren't you? Just, my goodness me, a warrior all by yourself.
It's so fun, Beverly. I've got you right here with me. Somebody said earlier in the chat, we're like two cousins. I'm like, you're more like sisters. Yeah. But
yes, I think so. Always getting up to mischief.
Totally.
Getting up to mischief. Why not?
Absolutely. I can't wait for you to come to South Africa as well. We're
going to do the Owl House. Yeah, actually, if people want us to do a tour, Owl House, Karoo, Hitchhiker, UFO, all of that, I think that could be a whole heap of fun. We could then put a really nice tour together for next year.
It's going to be so fun. Well, you got to tell me when you're going to be here, and we'll put it together.
We will do. I will have a look at it. Maybe we do something in the warmer months when it's a lot warmer, because then the Karoo will be
warmer. Please
stay out late.
Okay, but not. But in the Karoo it also gets as hot as hell in midsummer. So we want to do like April. April, March, around about there. May could be getting a little bit cold, but April is a good time. March, April, May is a good time.
April's a good time. Okay, that sounds perfect.
Or September. Yes. September's good. A year from now.
That's also good. Yes, April is a good month. It begins with an A, so that's always A's got an arm type of energy.
A, B, C, you see.
Oh, well, there we go. We've got the ABCs. Hitchhiker, UFO in the Karoo. Why not? I think it sounds like a plan. Either way, it would be chaotic and lots of fun.
Totally. Come and join the ABC. We have such fun. Guys, I hope you're all planning to come and join us, because we are going to have a fabulous time. We really are planning it. I mean, we haven't planned the dates, but rest assured it's going to happen. So all of you that want to been trying to get your little claws in to come and visit this beautiful continent of ours, it is fabulous. You'd be very welcome.
Yeah, come and hitchhike a UFO with us. Why not?
Yeah, we're gonna call that. We're gonna hitchhike that UFO right down, and don't even
lots of fun.
Just the sight of us brings it down.
Well, we'll get Danny Henderson and all of her crew. I mean, could you imagine? That would just be an absolute crazy. That would be crazy mess right there. Lots of fun.
And then we hire a spacecraft from them to land on Johan Rupert's farm, and then you try and see them cover that up.
Yeah, let them cover that one up. Oh my Lord! Well, the last one, Karoo 2021, was the last one that came down. That I'm aware that they were covering it up very quickly. I just laughed. I thought, well, this is disclosure.
Cyril doesn't even know how to. Cyril doesn't even know how to cover his. Let me not go there. Cyril really, honestly, but somebody else must be covering it up then, because Cyril doesn't know how. Anyway,
I think it's that same elite group, the ones that I mentioned earlier that were around with Magnus Milan. He put that group together to cover up stuff, and the deep underground military bases, the DUMBs, the deep underground military bases that are there. They keep a lid on it, and that was the lid that was put there from the Magnus Milan days.
Okay, but that lid's got to be blown right off. We've got to blow that lid off. That lid's got to come off. Or you got to go pop. There we go. Off. What?
Yes, I think that would be good.
We go scratch. Yeah.
I'm going to do some extra research and see if I can find, what I'd mentioned about the section underneath Table Mountain. There's got to be some hikers or people that hike up into the mountains. They must have taken some footage somewhere. There's got to be something somewhere on the internet that it says about, I saw this at the base of Table Mountain or something. There's got to be something. There has to be. because it's been there. If they've seen it in today's world, it would be like really rusted, lots of leaking pipes, and it would be just awful, dank, dark, smelly. But I'm pretty sure it's still there. I don't think it's being used because they would have put them in other facilities by now. But I reckon that you'd be able to see is those stones that have been put on top of the pipes and the stones that have been packed on top of each other of all the children and young people that were made to stay hidden in these underground tunnels and caves. So let's have a look and see if we can find it, because I know that that evidence is out there. We just need to find it.
Exactly. It's gonna surface.
It will.
Yay!
Yay!
And then we will disclose it right here. I
Absolutely.
love I love splitting on these guys. I love it. I
It
love
is.
digging
I
up these
like it
things and
too.
telling everyone. We just
Good.
tell everyone about it. We're such gossips. I love it. Okay, guys.
Thank you,
Take good care of
Chanti.
yourselves. Yeah, thank you. It's such a great pleasure always having you.
As
And you
always,
almost go
we'll
and
see.
take, yeah, go
See you
take good
next
care of
week.
yourselves.
Next week,
Indeed,
same place, same
indeed.
time.
Next week, same place, same time. I will see you tomorrow again. Not live though. Just check the schedule to see what show is going to be on. Wednesday with Jesse. Thursday, not live. There'll be a show on there. And then Friday, Holly Baglio. And really looking forward to that as well. So, guys, take care and just stay wild on these spiritual streets out there, man. Jeez. And live your life like it's golden, because why not?
It is.
Goodbye.
Thank you.